Good morning. In today's gospel, we hear of a leper who asked the healing touch of Jesus. Now, leprosy in the Old Testament or in the time of Jesus is not like what we have in our time, which is Hansen disease. The leper asked Jesus to heal him. Now, leper at the time had the obligation to proclaim themselves when people are approaching. They would have to shout, "Unclean," to forewarn them, prevent them from coming close to them. Because the tradition was, if you touch someone who's a leper, you become unclean. Consequence of this, you would be isolated. In our time, the word that we used is quarantine. You'll not be allowed to come and worship with the community. You're not allowed to be with your family. Such was the predicament of Jesus. But for Jesus, no. He actually touched the person. And in touching, the leper cured him. Refresh your memory again. Then he told him to go and show yourself to a priest. Now, I usually would start my preparing for my homily on a Monday, and it was interesting to read about the role of priests in the time of Jesus. We hear from the gospel and we hear from the first reading the role of the priest. They were to proclaim, certify that one is healed. Well, to paraphrase that and put that into our time, the role of a priest in the time of Jesus is almost like a CDC in our time to certify about the pandemic that we have. Now, going back to Jesus, he healed him, but told him not to tell anyone. Think again. Why would Jesus tell that to a person? Because there was one idea behind it. Go back to the Old Testament when the Messiah, the idea of the Messiah, started to be prophesied. Go back into that idea and look into description of who a Messiah is. One who would heal the sick, one who would feed the hungry. And that's what we are hearing now and yesterday. Yesterday was about the feeding of 4,000 or more people. Today we have the healing. Now, if Jesus said, "Do not tell anyone," there was a reason behind it. Because Jesus did not want them to think that he was a wonder or a miracle worker. What he wanted them to know, that he is the Messiah. He is a source of salvation, not just healing, not just food. Now, to apply that into our time, how do we apply the lesson of the readings of the day into our life? One person that I would like to mention here is the one who followed the footsteps of Jesus in terms of leprosy. I told you some Sundays back about my trip to Israel. Hawaii. I told you that. Remember? I told you how I went there to watch the whales, right? But what I didn't tell you was this. It was interesting to see, if you see the whale feeding the calf, you'd always see turtle close to the whale. Very interesting. Why? And then when I went home to my country of birth, I asked some fishermen why, and they started to tell me that actually turtle is a good thing for the whale, because turtle would actually drive away sharks who would otherwise be interested in the small whale that was newly born. And that's why the turtle was always welcomed by the whale. Now, put that aside. Let's go back to the readings of the day. One reason why I went to Hawaii was to be in Molokai. You know Molokai. Molokai is known for the saint of Molokai, Saint Damien, right? We know that Saint Damien is from Belgium, and he wanted to follow his brother, who was a priest, working here in the U.S. But instead of working in the mainland U.S., he decided to volunteer to work in Molokai, which was at the time the place where all the lepers would be sent. It was then that leper was a deadly disease, not anymore, because with a lot of antibiotic, leprosy can be healed. So going back to the time of Saint Damien, he volunteered to work for and with the leper. He followed the footsteps of Jesus. He not only cared for them, he touched them. And in doing so, he was infected with leprosy. And Saint Damien died young, 49 years old, when he died of leprosy. And here is an example of how we can follow Jesus in what we hear from the gospel of the day. When Jesus touched the leper, when Jesus healed the leper. Let us reflect on that, apply that into our life, how we can follow the footsteps of Jesus.